The first thing I want to do is take the Moorish Science Temple of America. First, what is the Moorish Science Temple of America? What you see on the screen here highlighted in yellow, the yellow highlight is directly from the Herbert Smith Revised Statute. And these statutes, right? Remember when people say challenge the jurist, or remember about the constitutional challenge? Man, let me shrink out of this. I got carried away here. The constitutional challenge is when you challenge the constitutionality of a statute. For a statute to become constitutional, it has to be enacted or validated by the Congress and the Senate, right? And what that does is it makes it what's known as positive law. And positive law is much stronger than evidence of a law. When a statute passes the Senate and all that other stuff, it becomes positive law. So this is what happens to the Moorish Science Temple of America, that was established as a religious ecclesiastical body politic in 1928 by the act of Noble Drew Ali. And notice how even that corporation is different. It was established by an act of the prophet. It was an affidavit and it was recorded in the county. The Moorish Science Temple of America is a body politic, which is a government corporation. A government corporation has a different type of lifespan, and this is what people have to understand. This is significant because it's very important for you to mentally grasp and understand that the Moorish Science Temple of America, incorporated in 1928, remains a body politic by the name incorporated. So it really doesn't matter if someone does a de facto registration with the Secretary of State and incorporates the Moorish Science Temple of America, Inc. or whatever. I'm not saying that that's neither good nor bad, but what I am saying is it has no effect or impact on the Moorish Science Temple of America that derives its force and authority from the Herbert Smith Revised Statute that was recorded in 1928 and remains a body politic and corporate by the name so adopted, which is the Moorish Science Temple of America. So you have to understand this government corporation works differently, and it's going to outlive you, and it's going to remain as such. And now, this is also from the Herbert Smith Revised Statutes. A failure to elect trustees at any time shall not work a dissolution of such corporation, but the trustees last elected shall be considered as in office until their successors are elected. That's just kind of speaking to the fact that it remains a body politic. All right, it's a new day here, but I have to finish this, getting this information out here now. So I will continue where I left off, and I'll say that the same way that Noble Drew Ali went through a very specific legal process to confer the proper jurisdiction as a part of redeeming us, you know what I'm saying? Because not only did he bring the nationality, then he had to bring the government construct for us. We're going to just discuss the terms nation state, the term state as relates to body politic and government corporations, so that you can further and international law, so you can further understand why it is significant and important that we join this organization that remains in effect, and why we have a general understanding that when we join any Moorish Science Temple of America or related Moorish organization, that's a religious organization, that organization has to be subordinate to the Moorish Science Temple of America. And there's really technically only one. Now, irregardless of what it's called, now, when I'm using the term subordinate, there is a specific procedure laid out in the Herbert Smith Revised Statute, and it's a matter of law, and is also a part of what's enacted in the positive law as far as procedure for bringing any subordinate religious corporation, school, any type of subordinate body under the jurisdiction, which is the ecclesiastical body politic of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It has to follow that specific procedure to bring it under the de jure jurisdiction. it is the majority of the United States, and all of its sub corporations are de facto, or excuse me, yeah, they're de facto, and and the de facto status of the majority of these corporations is what allows, let's say, um, judges, if you will, to intervene in the matters, if you will, or not just judges, but uh, foreign agents. That's what allows them to intermeddle into the affairs, because de facto corporations have a setup as such that anyone can assume the position of a trustee. So that's why you see in here when it talks about um, a failure to elect trustees at any time. Let me move this up here. A failure to elect trustees at any time shall not work a dissolution of such corporation. This is under the Hurd-Smith Revised Statute. But the trustees last enacted shall be considered as in office until their successors are elected. No matter what you do, this remains a body politic. So this is a structure, and I'm not going to go into the specific procedure, if you will, to subordinate a religious corporation or any temple under the 1928 jurisdiction, let's just call it for lack of a better term. But if anyone, Grand Sheiks and Moorish Americans, you read the Hurd-Smith Revised Statute, which you should be familiar with, then you will see what is supposed to be done. So if you're going to join the temple and that's not done, I suggest you bring that up, so maybe that matter can get corrected. And any questions about that you can ask me. Now, again, I'm not a Grand Sheik, I'm not an adept, I'm none of that. I'm just a Moorish American. I'm a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and I'm contributing my resources, my skills, my time, my services for the cause of uplifting fallen humanity and getting these governments. It's one government, but we have to operate in temple structures. This is the structure and the framework that has been set up. But just know there is a specific statute, so make sure that the body that you're dealing with is meeting all those requisites. And it's not just a form or a show, because when you start reading this stuff, you read the Hurd-Smith Revised Statutes, you start reading your history. We have a lot of good history that I'm uploading on thctrust.org that deals with Moorish American history and things like that. We got a lot of good stuff on that. But once you kind of know the construct for yourself, it becomes more a part of your being. You understand? So you kind of operate differently accordingly, and it just you start making little changes just because, right? So this is all a good thing. So here's definition from the Bouvier's Law Dictionaries. Nations or states are independent bodies, societies of men united for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by the joint efforts and their combined strength. But every combination of men who govern themselves independently of others will not be considered a nation. You understand that? So it means if we just create some other group, we create some other name, and we call ourselves a nation, we won't be considered a nation. That's what matters, the legal consideration. Because if it ain't legal consideration, it's just words. They're not even our words. They're Roman characters. So these are the keys. A body of pirates, for example. You can replace pirates with today the term belligerents. So you can think you're a nation if you get involved with the wrong thing. And it might have some truth about your history, but in the grand scheme of wordplay, a body of pirates would be termed as a body of belligerents, who, for example, govern themselves, are not a nation. To constitute a nation, another ingredient is required. The body thus formed must respect other nations in general, and each of their members in particular. You will find this in the fabric of all international law, that a requisite of being a nation is you have to respect other nations, and in return you have to respect the customs of the people of other nations. And this is why when you talk about law between nations, you talk about international law, customary law, and treaty law. So this is why, relative to who we are as Moorish Americans and the Moorish Science Temple of America being the autonomous government construct for us, this is where our treaty comes into effect. I'm gonna put the links under here, and I'm talking about the Peace and Friendship Treaty. Everybody knows about the Peace and Friendship Treaty. A lot of people say, "Oh, that's not our treaty." Well, I'm also gonna put some links down here that will argue. It'll let me put it like this. It'll put things in more perspective. Remember, Noble Drew Ali says, I'm paraphrasing, something to the fact that you are what your ancestors were, undoubtedly. You know what I'm saying? So basically, when people are trying to figure out, are we with the slave narrative? No, you never were a slave. Even people who were enslaved were in a particular mind state, but you never were a slave because you could never be redeemed from being a slave. You are undoubtedly what your ancestors were, and that is a necessary ingredient of a nation state. You have to have a nationality. So I'm saying all that to say that treaty applied to the Kingdom of Morocco and the United States. So if you are what your ancestors are, that is your treaty. The case concerning the rights of nationals of the United States of America and Morocco was a international claim that France, who happens to be the protector of us, supposedly, under the provisions of international law in the Peace and Friendship Treaty, they brought a claim against the United States of America regarding the rights of nationals of the United States of America in Morocco, as well as a protected class. They also use these terms. So in this legal opinion, they're making an adjudication on the rights of these people in this domicile, which is not geographically restricted or limited. Further, when you talk about the legal opinion of the case concerning the rights of nationals of the United States and Morocco, they started talking about the French zone, the French protected area of Morocco, which I would believe is like, if you're talking about Morocco here, you're talking about the port of New Orleans and some of the areas that are still French in territory today. And then they talk about the Spanish control area, and they're talking about the rights of the protected nationals and things of the such. And the other point I wanted to make is domicile. It always stood out to me that men elect their domicile. So domicile, again, cannot be a geographical thing if it's in a matter of election, right? Just like if Morocco and the United States of America and domicile, all of these things are not geographical things, but the domicile is related to the nationality. You understand what I'm saying? So your jurisdiction, or the jurisdiction that's conferred upon you, is related to your nationality. That's a matter of international law. What problems is when we don't make a self-determination, a determination is conferred upon us that we are in the black status or a civil litter, more two status, that we don't have life nationality, or that we are incomplete and incompetent, and that we are only subjects or property. So, self-determination is a right that you must exercise. You must determine. And the self-determination goes into your nationality, your domicile, your right to have your customs, etc. So I kind of say that because you have to think in terms that if someone's going to say you're not that nationality that you say you are, then they are injuring you and damaging you in the flow and the construct of law, if you can follow along where I'm going. And you have to have them provide you with evidence of who you are, because they're violating and denying you of your right of self-determination, human rights. You understand? So because they want to put you or subject you into slavery to some degree. So you have to know this. You have to know the whole construct that leads up to this. And this is why we do all the trusts and the paperwork and everything that we do, and we go through the jurisprudence of the thing, because when you go through the paperwork of it, you sign the paperwork, you read it, you see how it's built together, it helps you know it, and then it helps you explain to somebody else a lot easier. So that's why we go through all of these different things. But I'm going to put the links down there. You guys heard this stuff for a long time, and now the evidence is starting to come out. So I'm going to put the links down there to demonstrate the evidence that this was once Morocco, and it stands to reason that when you talk about the French protected zone of Morocco, as they talk about in the international opinion about the treaty, the case law, they talk about the French protected area, they talk about the Spanish protected area, which probably would be California, Caliphate, and or possibly Florida. I don't know the history like that. There's some scholars out there that probably can speak to the history of that. But when they talk about the French protected area, the Spanish protected area, they're talking about all right here how they sliced and diced it up, and we have to know our standing, our status, our standing, our domicile. That's what we have to know. Okay, so this is something else that I want to speak on along the lines. This is the trademark. I'm going to put it on the screen so you can look at it while I talk. So this was incorporated, this was trademarked, and I think for very good reason, and everyone will benefit from this trademark because it's registered as collective membership. So the Moorish Science Temple of America trademark information. The mark identification, it was the Moorish Science Temple of America. The last applicant / owner is the Moorish Science Temple of America, Inc. But who's the Moorish Science Temple of America, Inc.? This is a specific location, but this is not to say that this location owns this trademark. And I'll show you because it's registered as a collective membership. And you can see that down here. Let's actually look at it. Here's the actual. Let's see if I can make this bigger. I can't get it any bigger, but this is United States Patent and Trademark Office. It's the registration number. It says collective membership, and it shows the Moorish Science Temple of America, and it says, what is it for down here? It's for indicating membership in a religious and civics organization. But what kind of religious and civics organization is it? As we already talked about, it's a body politic, which is a government corporation. So it's a religious corporation, which gives it the sovereign power, and then it's a government corporation that gives it an autonomous nation state construction, and all we need to do is form in the proper body. Now this is interesting, so pay attention to this. It says first use in commerce in 1928, right? 1928 is when the Moorish Science Temple of America was incorporated as a religious body politic. That's when it was used in commerce. That has something to do with a restructuring that was going on, whereas in now to maintain a nationality, irregardless of who you are. It's the reason why countries and other body politics incorporate. It's a way to maintain their sovereign powers. It was a restructuring, and it was going on in the world worldwide. And in reality, if you would look, prior to those events, the Pan American Conference was going on, where they were talking about public international law and private international law. So there was a whole civil worldwide structure change going. So there was a certain window of which had to take place. So an international legal process had to be done, for us, especially because it was something that we couldn't do for ourselves in the mental state that we were in apparently in the 1920s. Now, when you take the Vatican City state, because remember, we talked about earlier, domicile being a matter of election, right? Or being related to your nationality. So you talk about the Vatican City state, then and now, is a city state, whereas we're a nation state. The difference is in a city, there can be multiple nationalities. There's mixing and minglings of nationalities in the city state. And if you are considered to not have a nationality in the Vatican City state, you are accorded the lowest class of citizenship. Citizenship is a status because you were given the class of servant or slave or another form of, let's say, civil rights that didn't apply to people. They weren't human rights or national rights because you didn't have a nationality. So these are the different class systems and things that took place in the city state and still do take place in the city state. And you identify the property by the names. We have English names. So you see, this whole thing was constructed and well set up. So the nationality was brought to us. So now that we have the nationality, what's going to identify us? That's where your L's and your B's come in. Because right now you have English names and you're in a city-state of Rome, which, you know, Rome and these different things that you heard of anciently, if you follow the history, those, let's say, governments, bodies, organizations, whatever they were then, they still are operating through international bodies of law and treaties, carrying out treaties and constructions of treaties. They, you know, contracts, basically commercial instruments. They're respecting nation states, so they're operating through these instruments, and they're still participating in these things now. That's why the system affects us even when we're ignorant to these things. But we have the English name, right? And we're in the Roman city-state because we don't have the proper nationality to put us in our own autonomous government structure that we have to be a part of in order for it to work. So in a nation state, everyone has to have the same nationality. We have a treaty. We have a flag. You know, we have those things. But this kind of shows you, this is a completion. This is why I say it's very important that you kind of get the jurisprudence down, because a lot of the literature for the Moorish Science Temple of America has been changed, including the card. So let me show you something. We show how the Moorish Science Temple of America incorporated in 1928 as a construct for a body politic. Kind of showed you that in the setup of the law and the definition of the words. But if you look at the collective membership registration, notice up here it says collective membership principal registrar. Collective membership, definition of a collective membership mark is a mark adopted for the purpose of indicating membership in an organized collective group such as a union, an association, or other organization, and is adopted for the purpose of indicating membership. In our case, it's nationality, because nationality to a particular nation would construe also that you are a membership without any adhesion contracts attached to the organization, because the nation is also an organization. Neither the collective nor its members uses the collective membership mark to identify and distinguish goods or services. Rather, the sole function of such a mark is to indicate that the person displaying the mark is a member of the organized collective or group. So if you show this card, and remember, that's why I said you have to be careful, because a lot of the literature is changed, you know. And I'm not faulting people, because when a lot of folks found out this information, they were scrambling to put together the pieces of truth that they knew of. But the truth of the matter is, Noble Drew Ali's demonstration was very precise and specific. This is why, you know, he said, what is the name? Moorish American. And then this specific legal process of trademarking was done later on down the road, whereas the display of this symbol identifies you as a part of this civics or religious organization. On the back of the appropriate card, the right card, the original card, which I believe this is the original card, it says, and if it's not the original card, it's very close to it. It's far from what a lot of the nationality cards say today. It says, this is your nationality and identification card of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and birthrights for the Moorish Americans. So this is the other part of the status. This is the government structure through which our birthrights and our autonomousness, our right to self-determination, and all these things are supposed to be operated through. Remember, the construction that Noble Drew Ali created and exists perpetual in law cannot be recreated in these days and time. Now, it's time to get down to serious business. So I take off my glasses. That means real talk, real talk. Now, I made this video so that every day African Americans and black people who hear about Moorish Americans, and you're trying to get a better understanding, so you can academically understand how this connects to you in a big scheme of things, because I had to understand that before I joined myself to this organization and volunteered my time and my services. So I'm bringing this information so that hopefully you can see the significance and the importance and understand personally why you should volunteer your time, your education, your resources, whatever skill sets you have to help structure a Moorish Science Temple of America. You can join the temple that I'm a part of and work directly with me. As a matter of fact, that's something I'm going to be asking for some assistance at the end of this video for people with certain skills. But overall, there's important things that you have to take from this video. One is, I hope you better understand how carrying your card as a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, knowing what that is, the construct of what it is. It has a government structure, a law-giving structure, a checks and balances structure with the temple. Knowing how carrying that card associates you as a member of that organization. But that particular organization is a government corporation body politic, so that legally confirms your nationality, at least for the political, legal and political process that Noble Drew Ali did. Maybe it's not political, but legal. So anyways, I want you to kind of better see how that plays. So, because like you guys can understand about me, I'm not a Grand Sheik. I'm just a Moorish American, but because I understand this, it's not about, what my leadership is doing. Well, it is about what your leadership is doing. My leadership is in line, but what I'm saying is, don't abandon the Moorish Science Temple of America, because it's just as much for you as it is for anyone else. So if your leadership is doing something that you question, then you bring it up directly, or you bring it up through the body, or whatever the means is set up, in your temple to deal with it. But this is our government. This is our government. You have just as much a part of it, so we have to be involved. That's what I was hoping to put out here. I'm doing some work. I'm volunteering my time and my skills. Maybe you guys know my resume by now, but I'm a network engineer, senior network engineer. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Maryland in computer studies. I have Cisco certifications. They're no longer valid, but I've done these things for AT&T, the Marine Corps, Siemens, computer science corporations, and I have a general understanding of technology, and I'm using that. I'm not a web guru by far, but I'm actually educating myself more about building websites. But I'm looking for real good people, scripters who know anything about application development, website development, people who know about cryptocurrencies and investing in cryptocurrencies, people who understand blockchain on a very technology level, lawyers, attorneys, people who know how to blog, people who can, write English well. If you want to contribute, especially, if you want to contribute in general just to business, or if you have business, and you have a skill set, you have a degree, you have intellect, reach out to me, because I got to get this directory going. If you have organizational skills, and I know I'm going to get, the thing is, I'm not going to be able to work with everybody. I'm really selecting right now, because I have some specific projects that I'm trying to accomplish, and I need some advice and some guidance from professionals of different fields. So I'm asking whatever your field is, because I have a list of things here that I need some guidance on, and then as you reach out to me and maybe I ask you questions, I'll figure out, okay, this is somebody I need to be talking to. But accountants, if you have any kind of accounting experience, accounting degrees, bloggers, if you have bloggers, followings, I know there's a lot of Moors out there that have followings and bloggers that wouldn't mind working together, and you have a pure heart, clean heart, and all of that stuff. Writers, periodical writers, you know what I'm saying? Not just, writing some garbage, but even if you're not a periodical writer, but you're a good writer, and you always thought about, man, I would like to create a newspaper or something. Because think about it, if there's 3 or 4 Moors out there who all want to be a periodical writer, but like somebody like myself, I like to write periodicals, but I know I don't have enough time to write enough to have a weekly periodical with multiple articles. But if I had 3 or 4 other Moors, we can all be writing, so that now we're all editors of one periodical. So I am putting a directory together in that regard, so some things I'm going to be working on that. And if you want to help assist in arranging and organizing a directory, you can get in contact with me too. But I can't tell you how to do that. You have to have a means in place, because I can't really govern and manage. I'm looking for people that can come to the equal playing field with thought, and let's get some things going together. I can't manage you. Have a tough enough time managing myself. Accountants, bloggers, editors, periodical writers, vloggers, video loggers like myself, who talk on a video. Economists, if we have any economists out there. Mathematicians, if we have any mathematicians, algorithmists, statistics people, all of those. We definitely need those people. Scientists, you know, the holistic community, people that's definitely people who's involved in farming. Now, here's the thing: when I start talking about farming and solar power and those type of renewable energies, everybody in the world is kind of like doing that. If you can do this and you can show on the ground, like I can take a camera there and I can see the project, somebody can give me a demonstration of turning, a grapefruit into a windmill or something like that. You can show me that, like we can get that on video and we can see that, then it's all good. But I can't deal with a lot of middleman and third party and things like that. We are trying to get moving, okay? So political associations, on the board of the state of the whatever, the city of the whatever, the government of the marketers also, graphic artists, marketers, um, and I really know I didn't say everything. So if you do have a very valid skill, reach out to me and let me know what it is. Let me know what your service is. Let me know what your business is, and also send that information to Moors at thctrust.org.